Hey, how long do you give a new salesperson before you expect them to go out into the field and be productive? I mean, how long do you train them? Some companies, it's a week. Some companies are ultra generous with 2 weeks. Companies with a very complex set of product lines, that might go 3 or 4 weeks for that matter. But do you really know what it takes to prepare a salesperson to be productive in the field? Have you faced reality? We'll do that next. This is Sales Untraining, a very different kind of sales podcast. 3 out of 4 salespeople are failing. They're falling short of their revenue. Why doesn't sales training work? That's what this sales podcast is about. It's your weekly sales strategy guide designed to rewire your sales brain. Hey, welcome to Sales Untraining. It is your weekly sales strategy guide designed to completely rewire your sales brain. Why? Oh, because systemically, we're doing it wrong. That's what the numbers say. That's what the data says. We don't want to admit it because fixing it is a lot of work. But systematically, that's exactly what we're going to do on this podcast. Hey, I hope you'll like, subscribe, share the podcast with people you know. If you got questions, send me an email. Kelly@bizlockerroom.com. This week, we're going to look at how we handicap brand new salespeople from the jump. How long does it take to get a brand new salesperson up to speed? Now, we kind of got to define what up to speed means, because does that mean being able to go out and introduce a brochure and a business card? Does it mean being able to get out and actually begin the sales process and going to need some help coming along? Does it mean being able to take a customer from first lead all the way to an order, close the deal, work them through a complete sales process, including discovery and qualification and a concept presentation and a final presentation, close the deal at a rate of 3 out of 4? How long does it take to get to that? To understand your industry and your products and to become an expert in their applications, and you're starting to get the idea? A lot of work. I will tell you, in my experience, 18 years worth so far doing this, that most companies allocate a week, sometimes 2 weeks. Oh, if they're hyper generous, super complex product line, need a lot of expertise, going to be in a lot of specialized classes, maybe 4 weeks. Not enough. Not even close. And I'm going to show you how I know that. We'll talk about the ideas in particular, some things you can start doing now to change that. But please understand, if these weren't difficult issues, they would have been solved a long time ago, right? So when we start talking about systemic problems with sales training, we're not talking about the fact that we don't have the knowledge or that we don't even know how to do it. It's just changing the system requires an enormous amount of attention, an enormous amount of change in how we do things, reorienting the entire organization. Most companies flat out not willing to do that. Like, you know what, we're doing okay, which is leaving an incredible amount of money on the table. I will tell you, it's a tremendous opportunity for any company that's willing to invest. You can transform your sales team dramatically to produce disproportionate results, to crush your numbers, if you're willing to do what it takes. Is it doable? 100%. Is it easy? Not on your life. It takes somebody who's willing to go the distance. You got to go 10 or 12 rounds. This is not a second round TKO. This takes a lot of work. Now, this week, we want to talk about that brand new salesperson that comes in. All right, let's start there. No experience in your industry, selling skills background, has some successful sales experience, but they've got to learn your products and they've got to learn your industry. Well, that's one kind of track. Another track is hyper-successful salesperson with tons of experience in your industry, and you expect them to hit the ground running. That's a different track, right? Nice when we can get those. Doesn't happen all that often in my experience. Happens, but not all that often. In today's environment, today's company, if they're going to be successful, you're going to have to be an education organization. You've got to take raw talent. You've got to develop it. And if that's the case, and it is, the question is how, and how long does it take? Average sales leader is who in your past? Who is your average sales leader from your past? You know who it is, right? It's your best salesperson. And how good is your best salesperson at coaching, training, developing, nurturing new salespeople? Well, I'll give you a clue. Not very, right? Because typically your very best salespeople are unicorns. I'm talking about the top 2-4%, right? Not the top 20%, but the top 20% of the top 20%. Your top 4%, typically not a great idea to have them become sales leaders. You know why? Because they can't coach. Oh, they're hyper talented, but they don't know how to teach others. They don't have the patience. Why doesn't this guy just get it? What I have to do, hold his hand. I've told him 3 or 4 times. They run out of patience. And so they get very busy doing all the technical details, budgets and reporting and CRM and all of that kind of thing when they should be out coaching salespeople. Even if you have good sales coaches, bringing somebody in and training them on your product line to go out and be proficient in the field, you're going to do that in a week or 2 weeks? No chance. I know some of you are like, you don't know what you're talking about. I know, I get that a lot. But there's just no chance. Are they selling the most simplistic product imaginable in a transactional type of atmosphere where they simply say, here it is and here's what it costs. How many do you want? Okay, fine. But when you've got to go out and compete, when there is no prize for second place, and there are 3 competitors that are all pretty good at what they do, and you're going to have to fight for this order, and it's going to come down to, who's going to make the podium, the top 3 places, and the difference between first and second is 0.2 seconds. You know what I'm saying? You've got to be good. So what do? Kelly, we've got to have somebody in the field. We've got to. We've got customers not being covered. Fine. Send a customer support person out there and take care of people until you get a competent sales rep. But do you really want an inexperienced, incapable salesperson practicing on your best customers and your best prospects? It's a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea. Plus, I want you to pause for a minute and think about it from that new salesperson's perspective. The day they start on the job, their confidence is sky high. Their engagement level is as good as it gets. You spend all this time finding them, identifying them, interviewing them, courting them. That's what they used to say back in the day, right? Getting them sold on your company, and you're telling them how awesome they are, and we've got to have you, and you're going to be a great addition to our team. They come in day one, they are ready to go. They are on board. And then we stick them in a classroom for a week and, look at videos and webinars and spend time with product managers ad nauseum, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, if they're lucky, although that would be a really bad way to spend 3 weeks. Right? What do you think their retention rate is? We'll take some time with that one in a future episode, but suffice it to say, it's not good. And then you're thinking, well, come on now, Kelly, let's be fair, because we send them out to work with another salesperson. That's another episode too. But okay, they go out and spend a couple of days. They see kind of how it works. They, go out and take a couple of orders, or they visit a few, most typically go visit a couple of our pet accounts that we really like, and we say good things to each other. Do we really teach them anything? Do we really show them the ropes? They come back and we go, hey, congratulations. Here's your prospect list. Here's your target list. Here's your customer list. Get after it. And they go out with a certain level of anxiety that turns slowly into fear because they realize, I don't know what I'm doing. I've got just enough knowledge to be dangerous. And my boss is telling me to get out there and sell, sell, sell. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'll eat it. I'll eat those words. Okay. But for the vast majority of you, I've just described your reality, because you're having to cover for that rep that's not there. And then you've got to get them trained and out in the field as quickly as you can, just so you can have some coverage. Inevitably, what happens is they begin to disengage. They won't tell you that they're scared. They won't tell you that they lack confidence. They won't tell you that, I just don't quite know everything that I should. And by the way, you're not riding with them. You're not out making boatloads of sales calls with them. You have no idea how they're doing. But they'll tell you, oh yeah, I get it. I'm doing well. Everything's cool. And it's not. You know how we know? Turnover numbers, that's how. A good part of turnover is salespeople who just never get trained and developed appropriately. And meanwhile, super salesperson who's now the sales leader is like, yeah, that guy never got it anyway. Does this sound familiar? The guy just didn't get it. We need different kinds of people. Listen, I'd love to hire Michael Jordans every time. Just doesn't happen. There are amazing numbers of highly competent, capable, talented, potentially successful salespeople out there. We've just got to develop them. And when your sales training process is designed to get them in the field as quickly as possible with minimal amounts of information that mostly they've forgotten, it doesn't work very well. You know what the sales turnover numbers look? Let me share this with you. According to the data, 45% of business-to-business companies, sales organizations, report annual rep turnover above 30%. Let's just call it 30%. You have 10 salespeople, and this is across your industry, right? Across the country, 30%. So maybe that's not you, but maybe it is. Maybe it's even worse for you. 30%, you have 10 salespeople and you're turning over 3 every year. What is that costing you? Well, according to the data, it's somewhere between 1 times and 2 times their annual salary. Depends on who you read. Tons of studies out there. Go find them. Let's just say it's $50K. I mean, it's a pretty conservative number. $50,000 in loss times 3 people is $150K that you don't really feel, but you're losing the money. You know you are. Hard analysis, that's what you're losing minimum. And you don't want to spend an extra 2 or 3 weeks in a very well choreographed training and development program to get them ready to go out and make calls by themselves, to be successful, to develop confidence in who they are, because you just need some coverage. There are better ways to do this. The new average time for ramping up a new salesperson, according to the Bridge Group report, is almost 6 months. That's pretty conservative, actually. But most people have a singular approach to developing a new salesperson. Bring them in, pull out the fire hose, crush them with product knowledge, get them 2 or 3 days riding with a rep or with that sales leader, and then put them in the field. Woefully inadequate. The right approach looks completely different. During the interview process, we're showing them what our detailed onboarding training plan looks like. 4, 6, 8 weeks of highly developed, very precisely scheduled development with practice and tests. And you don't get to go out into the field and demonstrate our products until you've shown the proficiency to do that to us. Oh, that takes time. It takes effort. It takes planning. And that, my friend, is why most people don't do it. Well, how long should it take to be able to make a solo sales call? You know, just as a representative of the company, where they can feel and look and sound rather knowledgeable about what they're doing. How long to make an actual discovery call and get into a business conversation with a potential client and to work our way towards an actual presentation? How long before a salesperson can take a lead all the way and close the deal and implement the solution? Those are all very different timelines, and you have to prepare for those in some sort of sequential fashion, because you can't carpet bomb your new salesperson with training. It doesn't work very well. Well, we're going to look at how you can dramatically change the process of preparing a salesperson for the job. Stay with us. Hey, thanks for making Sales Untraining your first listen of the week. And if you find something you like, if you hear something that's interesting, I hope you'll share it with somebody you know. You can find out more about me at bizlockerroom.com or email me, kelly@bizlockerroom.com. Now back to the show. Hey, you need to make more calls. You know, the numbers are clear. You need to make more calls. Really? Making more calls equals more sales automatically? No, I don't think so. The type of call, the quality of call, the right opportunity, the right decision maker, and on it goes, right? And so a lot of sales leaders, sales managers think that coaching is simply telling people where they need to improve. That's not coaching. The type of coaching we're talking about is the kind of coaching that's specific and helps people get better at what they do. This week, we're talking about how we handicap that brand new inexperienced salesperson, putting him in the field long before they are ready or capable, or before they have the confidence to go out and actually make solo calls and talk in a fashion that leads people to believe they know what they're doing. You know what happens. I mean, it's very, very common, and it creates all kinds of issues and challenges. It leads to greater turnover. It leads to confidence issues with the reps. All kinds of things are happening. How do you fix it? How do you address it? It's a process. Changing all of that requires a lot of intense work, a lot of analysis of exactly what we need to do and how we need to do it and how we change our structure to accomplish those things. Part of the problem is we don't really address the fundamental question of what does ready mean? I mean, are we talking about getting out into the field and simply going, from current customer to current customer and saying hello and introducing ourselves? That doesn't take much. Are we talking about being able to open up a sales call and ask some relatively intelligent questions and hear the answers and be able to respond and take it to the next part of the sales process and maybe get some technical help to come inside and join them in that deal? Is that what we're talking about? Or are we talking about start to finish, get an order and go out and get a deal? Is that what we're talking about? And closing ratios in the neighborhood of 75% when win rates right now hover around 15 or 20%? More on that in other episodes. Those are the kinds of challenges that we're faced with. How do you fix a problem you haven't even defined effectively? I mean, I ask sales leaders all the time, how long does it take for your average new salesperson, no experience, to get up to a level where they break even and then they're paying for themselves? They have no idea. How about an experienced salesperson? Well, that's different, obviously. It's quicker, but many times it's just sort of an intuitive thing. Well, that doesn't take very long. Okay, well, how long? And by the way, when you bring in an experienced person, do you do any training, development? Do you confirm and validate that they can do the things that they say they can do? Have you actually watched them do presentations? Obviously, they still have to learn your product line, yes. But do you let them go directly into the field, or do you confirm that they're actually capable of doing very effective solution presentations? I remember when I first started in selling, 1981. Wow. Can't believe it's been that long. My boss said, you're going to learn our primary product. One machine. You're going to learn that product. You've got 2 weeks. You've got 2 weeks to learn our process, our sales presentation, the way we do things. I'm going to put you out in the field and ride with some people and all that. 2 weeks from Saturday, this was on a Monday morning. Well, a week from the Saturday coming up, you're going to do a live presentation in front of me, the owner, sales manager, and all the other salespeople. And if you can't do it at a level, then I'm confident that we could turn you loose on customers. Can't use you. No pressure. Right? But I didn't know any better. I was 20 years old. So I studied and I worked and I learned and I took it home and I practiced, and they made me practice. And I watched film on selling skills. Yes, film, 8mm film. That's how long ago that was. All of these things to develop the skills. And Saturday rolls around and my heart is about to come out of my chest, because right there in front of the owner, the sales manager, and a half a dozen other salespeople, I've got to do a full-blown presentation role play with a bit of a scenario lined out for me. This is the kind of business, this is who you're talking to, et cetera, et cetera. Well, thankfully, I did okay with that. They kept me. And by the way, as an aside, very first deal I ever made a presentation on, I sold it. I mean, that's not to brag. That's saying, hey, that's pretty good sales training and development to go out and nail your first deal. And, it was a pretty average, ordinary deal, or average, ordinary type of opportunity, not too hard, not too easy. But there was competitors involved, and I was able to get the deal. What are we trying to get people ready for? What I want to do is introduce you to the idea that what it takes for a new salesperson to get up to speed and have the confidence to go out in the field and do their job effectively is incredibly complex. I want you to take everything that they need to know. Think about this for a moment. If you sat down right now and started writing and wrote down every single thing that a new salesperson had to know at some level of proficiency, the list is incredibly long. I know because I do it with clients. And what I ask them to do is to break up all of that into 4 or 5 basic buckets of knowledge, and then you need to figure out how to prioritize what they learn first and why, and what being ready means, and then what's the second milestone and third, so that you can train them for that first milestone and then chunk on top of that to get ready for the second milestone, whatever that may be. But think about the big buckets that they're going to have to learn. Number 1 is easy, all right? Product information. They have to learn your product, but they don't have to learn all of the products at once. In fact, they can probably learn 1 or 2 or 1 major product category to be able to get out into the field and go make some calls. They can't service all of their customers. They don't know everything. But we need to develop confidence in that new salesperson. We need to make them proficient. That doesn't happen just because we expose them to the knowledge. They've got to learn it. They've got to retain it. They've got to be able to read it back. They've got to be able to use it in an actual presentation. So that's just one bucket. How about all of the systems and processes that your company utilizes in order to do their jobs? From CRM to budgeting to reporting, email systems, log-ons, passwords, workflow process, how we do quotes, that's a lot of work. And that's just the tactical stuff, right? It really doesn't have anything to do with selling per se, but it is a necessary part of their everyday job. Then how about this? How about industry knowledge, industry vocabulary and jargon? I mean, there was a time where I was a sales leader in the orthopedics world, and we had to teach people how to speak orthopedics. I mean, you go in to see a doctor and you don't know the difference between an arthroscopy and orthopedics, you're going to look pretty silly, especially the guys who come in and say orthoscopy and silly things like that. They had to learn anatomy and biomechanics and physiology and all of the things that would allow them to have a valid conversation with a medical doctor with a specialist degree in orthopedics. I mean, brainiacs, right? I can't sound like a chump. We got to get them ready, and they've got to understand what the doctor is saying. So that's another big bucket. And then, of course, let's not leave out the selling skills bucket. Most of your salespeople, if they are product pushers, and by now you should know what I mean by that, they may be deficient in selling skills and sales processes, which can go in the systems and processes bucket. How to identify the right opportunities and how to begin the process and do discovery, and on it goes. How to move from discovery into actual concept presentation, solution presentation, closing deals. Not everybody can do that. Most people can't. Most people are product pushers. That's what the data says. That's the problem. And if that's the case for your company, we're leaving a lot of money on the table. And then there's a 5th bucket, one that I talked to in an upcoming episode with a gentleman named David Brock, and that's business and financial acumen, business skills, financial skills, understanding how things impact a company, the returns on investment, and being able to talk in a very understanding way, talk the business side of their company and how your solution impacts all of those things. That's 5 major buckets of information, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that they've got to acquire at some level to be proficient. I mean, clearly they're not going to get all of that and become, a 5-year veteran in the first even 6 weeks. But you have to identify exactly what they do need to know, and you need to sequence that training and institute practice for retention's sake, for readback's sake, so that we know that they know what they're doing, and they've got to get out and have a prescribed way of practicing that and observing it with successful and skilled salespeople, and on it goes. Yeah, it's a process. It is a long process, but you got to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere. You know where to start? Take those 5 buckets of knowledge. Start writing down all the components. I'll see you next time on Sales and Training.
Sales Untraining is a production of Business Locker Room and Pod About It Productions. Music and editing by Doug Branson. To get more Kelly, visit bizlockerroom.com.